If you remember using the giant magnet on Captain Phasma, running endlessly around Ahch-To, and riding a horse on top of a Star Destroyer, then you played LEGO Star Wars. But which one? Because there were 6 games released across 19 different consoles, and in this series we're going to compare each of them. And this time around we're comparing the sequel games. So let's start with the standalone LEGO Force Awakens released in 2016. Now this game was a departure from previous installments which usually focused on an entire movie trilogy or a series of Clone Wars episodes. This time around, the entire game is focused on a single movie. Well, kind of. It actually starts at the end of Return of the Jedi. I've already covered this section in detail in my episode 6 video. The Force Awakens section of this game actually starts with Poe Dameron on the Resistance base. Poe and BB-8 set off to Jakku, where they retrieve the USB stick from Count Dooku. Now, basic puzzle solving and building was always a part of the original games. The Force Awakens certainly sticks to that formula, but it also expands it slightly. There are a few more interactive elements this time around, but it's still pretty straightforward. Oh, and you can also hide in a box.
Kept you waiting, huh?
Oh look, how considerate of these stormtroopers to wait until I finish this puzzle. So Poe makes his way through the camp, shooting the troopers and villagers too. Now, because this game is based on a single movie, the developers had to stretch the levels out a bit and add a lot more puzzles and building than the first 2 games. The gimmick they went for this time around is rebuilding the same set of bricks several times into different contraptions to solve a single puzzle. Right, so the next level starts with Poe, the First Order prisoner, being escorted by Finn. Alright, time to sneak off this ship. Now the hell of it. I mean, they're only the same orphans I grew up with. This random guy I just met is way more important.
Gonna meet you, Poe. Gonna meet you too, Finn.
Ah, something tells me this is the start of a great friendship. Of course, this wouldn't be a LEGO Star Wars flying level without the good old-fashioned purple torpedoes. The game is centered around the galactic map, something that would be reused in the Skywalker saga. Each of the planets has a few story chapters in addition to bonuses, which we will cover later. The next level is Rey sandboarding, riding these robot camels, and free-running. Then we have Rey and Finn escaping from the stormtroopers, which ends in a Falcon aerial battle against the TIE fighters. This is followed by a level on the freighter, which has you swapping between Han and Chewie and Rey and Finn. The crew then go to Mars's castle, but again the developers felt the need to stretch the game a bit, so you can't actually go straight into the castle. You need to do some puzzles to wake up this sleeping thing, and then you've got to do a bunch more puzzles inside. And then we get the battle level, in which you can actually play as Mars. Also, this game loves the cover mechanic. Okay, so we then get 3 levels on Starkiller Base. The first has Han, Finn, and Chewie infiltrating the base. The next level starts with Poe attacking the base, then Rey escaping, and then poor Han getting lightsabered. But you don't actually see it. Come on, Disney, the original game showed Qui-Gon taking a saber right through the bricks. Anyway, the final level starts with Poe flying over the big hole. Again, I don't think this actually happened in the movie, however, this game was in development parallel with the film, so they had to make some creative assumptions. The second half of the final level is the boss battle against Kylo Ren. And speaking of creative assumptions, remember when Rey built a giant ice cannon in the movie?
Alright, everyone. Chill.
Now this is your typical LEGO co-op boss battle where both characters work together to beat the boss. Finn? Little help? She's got such a graceful combat style. Anyway, so the good guys win and go back to the Rebel base. Of course, now it's time for Rey to set off and begin her training. Leia, if you're secretly a Jedi, can you tell me now, because it's gonna save everybody a lot of time. No? Alright. So we're off to Ahch-To, and you better believe this is going to be another long level filled with every gimmick in this game. Look, Rey even warned you at the start.
It's going to be a long climb.
And that's it for the main story, but the game does have a bunch of bonus missions that are intended to fill out the movie story. For example, we've got this one showing how Poe got off Jakku, or this one where Han goes Raftar hunting, or this one that explains how 3PO got his red arm. What could be more fun than playing an entire level as C-3PO, but at least he can kick in this one. Similar to the Skywalker saga, this game does have open zone hub stage levels on each planet. However, it doesn't rely on them nearly as much as its successor. character. The game also has a huge number of playable minifig characters. In addition to every single character that's had a frame of on-screen time in The Force Awakens, it also has loads of characters from across the saga, from the movies to Clone Wars to Rebels. It even has Kathleen Kennedy. Oh look, they gave her a blaster and everything. And look, it's great to have all of these characters, but prototype Boba Fett just doesn't have the same impact flying around Mars's castle instead of, say, a Cloud City. And that's it for the standalone LEGO Force Awakens game. Now this is definitely the odd one out of the series, as it's the only one covering a single movie. As I mentioned earlier, the original games always covered a trilogy each, so they would actually end up having to skip bits from the movie. Now this game has the opposite problem, and one that many movie license games also suffer from. It inserts filler and stretches sections from the movie to create more gameplay content. I mean, this game has a level where Finn and elderly Leia have to run around the Resistance base trying to get inside. But I appreciate that the developers tried to get around this by adding content from Return of the Jedi and a metric ton of other characters. This game also had a bunch of ports, but they're all pretty much identical apart from some graphical downgrades. Before we continue, just a quick note to say that I have started a Patreon. It's only £1 a month, so if you've enjoyed my content, please consider subscribing, as it would go a long way in helping me release videos consistently. Thank you for considering. Moving on, we have the Force Awakens portion of the Skywalker saga. This one starts with Poe already on Jakku, and in the Skywalker saga tradition, the attack on the camp is an open zone instead of a separate level. You can shoot the troopers or just run straight to the ship. We then get Rey in the desert, which is another open zone. Now, Poe's Star Destroyer escape is an actual level, albeit a really short one. But you get this cool cannon. Whoops, sorry Poe. And there's no space battle this time around. The next part is a mix of open zone and actual gameplay. You've got to collect scraps in this old Star Destroyer. This time around there's less focus on Rey's agility and more emphasis on her building contraptions out of scrap. And then it's off to Nema Outpost, which has way more original trilogy aliens than the sequel movies ever did. Rey and Finn then fight off some bad guys, do a couple of puzzles, and get on the Falcon. This is also followed by a very similar flying level where you have to shoot down a bunch of TIE fighters. The next level is the freighter escape, and it's also very similar to the original, having you swap between the two parties to escape. This is also the single longest part of episode 7 in the Skywalker saga, and it gets a bit tedious. Thankfully, there's nobody guarding the door at Mars's castle. There are a couple of light puzzles inside, but it's mostly just an open zone. This is followed by a very short section fighting the troopers outside the castle. I find it strange how they make the freighter section so long and this one so short. Han is then reunited with Leia.
Hey Leia, sorry I decided to literally abandon all my character development and revert back to my old self from the start of the first movie.
Speaking of which, we're off to the hidden Rebel base. 3PO, you're looking a lot less shiny this time around. The Starkiller base sections are also condensed. You start with this pretty straightforward level where you shoot some troopers and use a giant magnet on Captain Phasma. Han then plants some explosives. Ugh, good thing this walkway's blocked, it looks really dangerous. Yeah, this time around they completely bypass the Han and Kylo bit, instead turning it into a joke. The X-Wing section is very similar to the original. Meanwhile, the Kylo Ren fight is your typical Skywalker saga boss battle. And then we're off to get some training, and unsurprisingly, Ahch-To is also an open zone. And that's it for the two versions of LEGO Force Awakens. Now, I find both these incarnations of the movie fascinating, as they were only released 7 years apart, and both have versions on the same consoles. Also, both games struggle with gameplay length, only for different reasons. The original is desperately trying to stretch the movie to make enough content for an entire game. Meanwhile, the Skywalker saga tries to condense The Force Awakens into 1/9 of the overall game. Alright, moving on, let's cover the other two sequels in the Skywalker saga. Now, The Last Jedi has a pretty promising start. We get this exciting flight level where Poe is taking on the Dreadnought. Alright, great, what's next? We've got Poe running around looking for Finn's jacket. Then we have Finn running around some more, only this time with Rose. They then fly to Canto Bight, run around some more there. Hey, come on, let me in. Let me in. Oh wow, it actually worked. And then we're back to running around, this time in the prison. As you can tell, these are all just open zones. Alright, on to Rey's story, which is more running around. Or in this case, walking around, slowly behind Luke. Look, I donked him a few times to try and speed him up, but it didn't work. Ah yes, finally, some gameplay! Recover Luke's milk bottle. Hey, don't judge me, this is the most action I'm gonna get out of this episode. We then walk towards the training, then walk towards the mysterious cave, do a few mirror puzzles, and then you fight Luke as a boss? Who's the co-op character here? Oh my god, Chewie, what are you doing? How could you? You had so many adventures together. Wait, what? Oh, looks like Luke's powers are on another level. Alright, so Rey finally leaves Luke and ends up being Kylo's prisoner. Well, not really, look, she can still beat the crap out of him. And the stormtroopers do not mind at all. And you'll be shocked to learn that this section is followed by more walking. Very slow walking. Unfortunately, the walking simulator is eventually interrupted by a boss battle against the Praetorian Guards. Again, this is your standard Skywalker Saga boss battle. What's interesting is that the developers cut out the part where Kylo tells Rey she's a nobody to try and retcon it for the next movie. Okay, back to Finn and his crew who have to sneak onto the First Order Star Destroyer. See, look, we're sneaking. We then drop a TIE fighter on Phasma's head and then walk some more, but this time inside a walker. Alright, onto the salty planet where we have to repair the radar dish so we can send the signal which no one will respond to. Look, even the developers realize this is stupid.
Imagine if no one responds. I'm sure they will.
Now, you don't get to play the salty Hoth Walker mission, but you do get to fight Kylo Ren as Luke. Well, not really, he can't attack, all he does is just dodge. No, you see, the real boss battle is Finn walking through the cave and then slowly drilling through the rocks. And that's it for The Last Jedi. Finally, we have the Rise of Skywalker, which starts with Kylo finding Palpatine. And look, you have Jar Jar in the big pickle jar, and I guess this is like an Easter egg to the fan theory that he's a secret Sith Lord. We then get a quick Falcon level, followed by another Rey training level, and thankfully, it's a genuine obstacle course this time around and not just, walking. Okay, we're off to another desert planet that's definitely not Tatooine. We meet Lando, then get into this chase where Rey takes out a TIE fighter with a small blaster. We then do some puzzles in the snake tunnel, and then we're off to this place for some more sneaking and puzzle solving. And then the crew arrive on a Star Destroyer. Oh, wait, Rey and Poe are already there. Alright, so we have a quick shootout with some stormtroopers, and then Rey finds out she's Palpatine's granddaughter. Then we're off to the Big Endor, where Rey gets to surf to the Death Star ruins, and the ruins are a classic Lego level filled with puzzles and platforming. Actually, this is probably the single biggest section of the Rise of Skywalker, and it concludes with a really long battle against Kylo Ren. It's set across a bunch of different set pieces, and sometimes he just refuses to take damage. Okay, that's enough gameplay, it's time to do some more walking. Wait, who's player 2? What, this thing? Look, it's as surprised as we are. I have got no idea what I'm a-doing here. I don't know why he's Italian. Okay, and we're off to Exegol for the big finale. What? Sovereign Protectors? No, I want to fight Big Puppet Palpatine. Well, you don't get to do that. Instead, you get this bit where Finn rides a horse, stopping periodically to shoot some Sith troopers. And the final section is this quick time event where Rey reflects Palpatine's lightning back at him. And that's it. Kylo dies, the rebels win, and Rey begins to fake an identity. And so there we have it, every LEGO version of the Star Wars sequels. So the standalone game is alright, but it's trying to squeeze as much juice as it can out of a single movie. As for the Rise of Skywalker, it definitely felt like the developers spent the least amount of time on this trilogy compared to the original and prequels. It's probably because they knew that most people were going to focus on those two and not this one. And let's be honest, some of these movies don't exactly lend themselves to an action game. To be fair, I don't have the same connection to the sequels as I do to the first two trilogies. Maybe that's why these felt particularly empty to me. But please let me know in the comments what you think. How well do the sequel versions of these games compare to the originals and the prequels? And as always, thanks for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe, hit the bell, follow me on Twitter, and I'll see you next time.